Welcome to She Says with your host, Stephanie Regalado. She Says guests share stories from their challenges to successes and, most importantly, the journey of womanhood woven alongside the collaboration of sisterhood. From self, love, friends and family, to hot topics, career, and worldviews, Stephanie and her guests discuss matters with utmost openness and honesty. So let's hear what she says. Here's Stephanie.
Hello, welcome to She Says. We started already and just didn't start recording. No, just kidding. I'm Stephanie Regalado, your host. I am honored today to have Carmen Pacheco-Jones. I said it right.
Yes,
I said it right the first time, then I just questioned myself. You are an advocate, you are a teacher, you are a lifelong student and learner.
Yeah.
I have been watching things that you've just posts that you've made and things that you've shared over time. I'm not sure the span of time, and I'm always impressed and intrigued by those who aren't afraid to bust through any fear or walls of shame to share their reality and their perseverance. And before we started, you had mentioned that people don't like to be uncomfortable a lot of times. They kind of like to just, and that's so true. And the breakdown in communication, when there's a perceived communication moment that may be a challenge. People often avoid it in romantic relationships, friendships, family.
In really every walk of life, it is. We avoid discomfort.
Yeah. So we're just going to bust right through anything that might be uncomfortable, because I love when we can just share and not have a filter. Yeah. You experienced, part of your story, the beginning of your story is experiencing abusive situations and traumatic situations.
Yes.
How do you come from that space and start rising up through those ashes?
That's such a good question. And just thinking about that in perspective, I don't have like one answer for it. I think that each of us just really dig deep and find whatever our core survival instinct is, and just start, I want to say, clawing back from there. Sometimes we're in such the depths of despair. It's really hard to know that there is a way out. But for me personally, I just kept the idea of hope. I would always say, I'm helpless, not hopeless. Because sometimes it feels like that. You're stuck, whether, like for me, I was stuck in addiction. I was, impacted by years of childhood abuse, years of filtering through different systems, like the child welfare system, the juvenile court system, then the adult criminal legal system. And there wasn't anyone there that was saying, you need to do this or you need to do that. So I had to learn, for myself, what was right.
Well, I know that can be particularly challenging when you are in developmental stages through your youth and have traumatic experiences. And they're coming out with the studies now that show that DNA is actually altered by trauma, and particularly like legacies of trauma, historic perpetuation of trauma in families. So that's something that people are battling. We've talked about this often on this podcast, that it's not as easy as choosing joy or choosing your way out of something when your actual mechanisms have been altered due to trauma in your life.
Yes, that is so true. And I joke that it takes most people 18 years to grow up. It took me 33, and the impact is that it affected my children. And when I realized what I was doing to my children, that was able to kind of awaken me from, this like lifelong stupor that I was in, self-destructive, because it doesn't matter like what people have done to you. You get to make the choice, when you're ready to move on from all that pain and trauma. So I just, use that as kind of a foundation. And with my family in particular, we had several generations of enmeshment within the child welfare system. My mom was raised in foster care. When she had us, she didn't have the skills to be able to, raise and care for children, and she was in multiple abusive relationships, and so we experienced the impact of that. And then she gave all of us up, and then here we are.
How many siblings did you have?
5.
Okay.
5, yes. And I was a third. My 2 older sisters, one had already gone into foster care, one had gone into a group home. And it's kind of hilarious. The story is that every once in a while I would go into the home that they had been in, and people would say, "We just loved your sisters, and they're just so amazing." And here comes damage to me that has been in the home longer, and was really like the protector of my mom and my younger siblings. And so I couldn't. I failed at being the perfect foster child, and what I chose to do was be on the streets. And at 12 years old, you're pretty vulnerable.
Were you were 12 years old when you started, when you were on the streets per se?
Yes, yeah. Oh. Well, and on the streets, you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
Being coerced. And I mean, we use these nice terms like coerced and stuff, but really it's forced. It's, at the threat of beatings or, significant violence. You're forced to be out there on the streets, making money, and, serving that population of men who cater to, for lack of better words, prostitutes.
Yeah.
To think about that, like who buys a child, but in reality, it's otherwise good men, they're the pillars of our society, the ones that are sitting in court or in church or wherever.
What do you think is behind that?
I think there's a lot of power and control issues there. I mean, many of the men that I saw throughout my 12 to 17-year-old self being on the streets is just that toxic masculinity, the ability to control and force someone.
Do you feel, were you trafficked?
Yes,
You meet the
human trafficking, yes.
Yeah. And what is that like? I mean, I don't want to be crude, but what is that like on a 12-year-old body? How do you handle that physically?
It takes its toll, definitely. And more so like on your emotions, because then you just deaden yourself out. And you're just going through the motions of what would be considered a life or existence. There were times I couldn't return back to the hotel unless I had, $500, $1,000, whatever he wanted, this individual who was trafficking me. It's isolating. There were other women, which we referred to wife-in-laws, that worked for this one pimp, and but there wasn't any solidarity or we should rise up or empower each.
Right.
It was just sadness, and it was emptiness, really. And an addiction is the easy way to cover that up, and it's also an easy way for an individual to control another person.
You shared with me a moment where you had been beaten severely by someone and not paid as that was expected, and you couldn't go back, like you're saying, to the hotel, and you decided to reach out to some family.
I did. I reached out to my sisters, and at that time, my mother had moved away from the city. I hadn't seen her probably in a couple of years. I didn't know where she was at, and I'm begging my sisters, can you tell me where Mom's at? Can you come get me? Can I just stay the night at your house? I didn't have any money. I knew if I was going to go back to the hotel that. There was questionable times where I doubted if I would survive the night. And unfortunately, just because of how we were raised, we didn't have that bond, and so neither of my sisters were able to be there for me at that time.
What did that feel like, that moment when you realized that you didn't, even those you thought were your lifelines weren't?
Oh, it's so isolating. I mean, it's just despair.
You're a
it's
young teenage woman in the
disappointment.
first
Yeah.
place, and then
Yes, yeah. Fear, and it's almost as if the whole world just kind of like crumbles
Absolutely.
away from you.
Yeah.
know.
Well, and I think, I mean, that's just the textbook definition of when someone loses hope is they don't feel like anyone cares.
Right, yeah.
And when you're in a situation where there feels like there's no way it could be a purpose, when you're enduring the atrocities that you were enduring, or so many other different forms of abuse that people go through, choosing to continue to live through that, were there moments where you considered ending your own life?
Oh, yes, definitely. That always, I think behind the scenes or like in the back of my mind, that was always an option. And I don't know why I didn't.
I was going to say, what kept you
attempts.
fighting?
There were attempts, and
Okay.
there were a couple of stints in the psychiatric ward, once as a youth, and then as an adult, a young adult. I don't know. I think that I was fortunate enough that I had people that sometimes they would intervene, whether it was a individual, from the Salvation Army that's passing out sandwiches and like, hey, do you need somebody to talk to, or are you okay? And
like those little tiny snaps of pockets in time where someone saw you.
Yes.
And cared enough about your willing to offer.
Yeah, exactly. One of the officers who had arrested me for prostitution, he sent his wife up to the jail to visit me,
Wow.
And we started doing Bible studies together, and we remained friends for years. I mean, every time I'd get out of jail, she'd come and pick me up and try and save me, and take me to church. And but I wasn't ready to be saved.
So what is your advice to those who are there for people who aren't ready to be saved? Because it sounds like she kept trying no matter what, and sometimes people give up on one another.
I would say don't give up.
Never give up on someone?
Don't give up. I mean, don't give up, loving and supporting them. I mean, we don't have to agree with their lifestyle or, be complicit in it, but we can still, love them for the individual and the human that they are. Yeah,
because I think it's our duty and honor in a social society and then within families and friendship connections to be a soft place for someone.
Yes.
Because we all leave a mark on those around us. Every single one. And I've had that. It's funny because one of the editor letters that I wrote that got the most lashback was I was speaking to a man who had been a felon, and I met him in a backyard sorry, and he had done his time and was out, but he kept feeling like, and then he felt like he deserved it. People knocking him down and not not giving him any value or worth in society. And it just crushes me to think that people would want to continue to oppress someone who had struggled. So he's gone through the system, he or she, they've done everything they say they're going to do. And then you're going to cast them to the side, but then complain that they're not going to be contributing members to this society.
Right. When do we forgive, or when do we quit categorizing?
When do we let go of even having to forgive or not forgive?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Is that even our responsibility? It isn't. And I think especially when you're looking at the child welfare system, which, was part of the abuse that I experienced, the abuse that my mother experienced, the abuse that my children experienced, is that, if you're able to demonize or villainize a parent, then you can also say that child is not worthy then as well. It makes it so much easier to make that jump. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and continue chatting about this. We'll see you back in a minute or so.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region, or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Hi, I'm Larry Myers, owner of River Ridge Hardware. Welcome to our garden center here on the corner of Garland and Driscoll. We have fresh plants that come in weekly from all of our local growers. We can make your garden look like our garden. Here at River Ridge, we've been here 30 years. We're your full-service neighborhood hardware store. This is our sprinkler aisle, where my knowledgeable staff will help you put together your sprinkler system so it will make your yard lush green for the spring and summer. This is River Ridge Hardware's rental center, where we provide a multitude of equipment for rent for the do-it-yourselfer. Next time you're working on your home or yard this spring and summer, stop by, say hi, and we'll help you get the project done.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome back to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalado with Carmen Pacheco-Jones. We're going to continue on. When did you have your first baby?
At 18. It was like 1 month after my 18th birthday, and I was still a street kid at 17, and contacting my caseworker from a payphone, begging him, like, I want to come back into foster care. I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm on the streets. I'm scared. I don't know where my mother is. And because I'd ran from every group home or foster home that they placed me in, he said no. But he did offer to get me a ticket to where my mother lived at in Yakima. And I declined that and decided just to hitchhike up there myself. So I was able to get clean a few months before she was born, and I did okay for a little while, probably for about 6 months before I relapsed. And
And you have 5 kiddos.
I do. I have 5.
What is their span in ages?
So 33 in a 10-year span. I had 5 children, so they're 33 to 23 now. Yeah.
And what are your relationships with them?
Oh, my relationship with my children and their relationship with me is just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's honest, it's open, it's authentic. For the last 18 years, I've really worked at creating this space where they can feel comfortable, discussing things, coming to me and even expressing, their anger and frustration about, my behavior and how it impacted them. So I've always supported and validated that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's helped our relationship to grow and blossom.
Were you able to maintain custody or of your children throughout?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I did have them with me for quite a while, and then at a moment like with police intervention because drug dealing and neglect, they were removed from my custody, and I continued to use for about a year until I realized I'm going to lose my kids forever. And just having experienced that abandonment and that lack of attachment, I knew how destructive that could be. So that's when I worked at getting clean, and at that time I had like 12 warrants out for my arrest, so I turned myself into jail and detoxed there and went to treatment and met with my caseworker, and it took me about another year to get custody of them back. But by that time, 4 of them were already at Hutton Settlement Children's Home.
Oh, okay.
It's such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And they'd been there for about 10 months, and I wanted them to have the option. I didn't want to disrupt their life any more than I'd already done.
Yeah.
So, my girls came with me for a little while. They ended up cycling back to Hutton, but Hutton has always been like this wonderful, stable place that embraces families. So it wasn't just that my children are there. It was my children are there, but I'm a part of their lives.
Yeah.
So, they were home with me on weekends, and we took vacations together. And
How do you reconcile within yourself and your heart as a mom, knowing those periods of time where there was neglect involved?
I carried that shame around with me for so long, and then it was just this huge weight that was setting me up for a potential relapse. I had to let it go, and I think I mentioned to you before what you had said is that I feel like nobody can judge me harder than I judge myself. And if I've forgiven myself, then I think that the other person should do so as well.
Well, and it's so true, because the shame actually doesn't come from ourselves as isolated humans.
Right.
It's in conjunction, or in this view of how we would be looked at.
Yes.
That's the shame in comparing ourselves to others, I feel. And it's right. I've had moments of, I think any parent can look back and see little moments that they wish they would have handled differently. And you just can't allow that to be like a pockmark in your soul and your heart, because it leads to perpetuate.
I don't allow that to define me anymore.
Well, and just looking at the glories and the victories and really focusing on that, because you, on paper, you would have every single reason to continue the life that you had been and struggled to be released from all those years, having been such a young, all your life experiencing a form of abuse. And sometimes when there's so much there, that then we continue it on with other methods.
We don't know any different.
It is what feels comfortable and just and right for our measurement of worth compared to society.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's how people get stuck. It's society and it's the individual.
How do you're an advocate now? You sit on a lot of different within community organizations addressing human trafficking, homelessness, mental illnesses, lots of things. Child welfare,
criminal justice system, just about everything. And I did that. It was strategic on my part, because I wanted to have an impact on these generations of children that are coming through the system, that are ending up in the adult, or that are being exploited, that are being hurt, because I really feel that we can do better as a society.
Absolutely. For those who just have an impenetrable mind to hear maybe your story openly and be able to want to sit down with you and share life with you in some fashion, what's a recommendation to begin to shift in their mind to be open and see their impact due to their thought systems on those, and how that continues to really truly oppress those who need someone to inspire and uplift and empower them more than anyone?
I think that as a society, we have so long cultivated this thought of separating individuals by good and bad. And we have to move past that. We can't define people as bad because of their behaviors that are symptoms of a society that's not working, or that has left them aside. It's poverty, it's lack of relevant resources, it's abuse, it's generational abuse, as we said before, where it's actually imprinted in your DNA. And I think that once we come to that understanding, it allows us maybe to open up our heart and our mind a little bit more to why this person is reacting this way. I'm really excited about an upcoming training that Spokane Regional Law and Justice is engaging in. The council members are, it's like this sequential mapping, where can we help individuals that have substance abuse or mental health problems that are, entering into the criminal justice system, where can we, divert them to get the resources that they need instead of locking them up. I'm also doing some work with the Center for Juvenile Justice with District 81 and Juvenile Court. We're going to be traveling over to Georgetown University to do, and it's really a nationwide thing, like how do we disrupt the school to prison pipeline? So I think I'm going to say attacking for lack of better words, but attacking it from all angles and allowing people to really see that these individuals can thrive and that we can thrive as a society.
Absolutely.
If we can just, understand, have empathy.
And no one has ever passed the point of return and throwawayable.
Right.
No human life. Exactly. One thing that I appreciate seeing in the elementary school systems, as my kids went through, is a different approach to behavior challenges with students, and understanding that the effects of trauma, where everyone's born inherently good, and that there's there are other factors involved when a child shows up and is having behavioral challenges at school. So an approach such as, instead of, I always hated this, seeing them make a child sit at recess or lose their recess. When the joke in my family was to let them get the demons out by letting them go and run and play and get that release. It just seems like some of the systems that are in place seem so opposite of actually truly helping lift them up and get them out of a space.
Yeah, we really focused on that social ostracization, because that's what we do to people in prison. We separate them from society. But if we were doing this to children that don't have the capacity to process, the pain that they're experiencing, those huge emotions, they might be being abused at home or,
or just socioeconomic challenges that are traumatic levels that people can't necessarily see.
Yeah.
What is the next big thing for you?
The next big thing, that it'll be the training with the Center for Juvenile Justice with District 81, and I'm just a community member, so to be invited in to do that is such an honor. I'm also doing some kind of conversations for the 21st century where it comes to equity and disproportionality within law enforcement and community, and also within the criminal justice system. Being able to participate in those trainings with systems professionals, and then just spending time with my children. I mean,
and you just had your 8th grandbaby
just yesterday.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Talk about having your heart burst. I have one, and it's like, she's the whole entire world.
Yeah,
and you're going to you're working on your master's degree?
I am, yes. I'm just finishing up at Gonzaga with my master's in education, and
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me here.
I always say it's kind of like a race that you're running in teams. You're as fast as the slowest runner on your team, and I really do feel like our society is as healthy as those who need the help the most. So we can't just look at certain sectors like they're thriving and make that and then everyone else is kind of annoying because they're not catching up and understanding the systems that we are all a part of and don't even understand our contribution to them. So thank you for being such a beautiful, kind, soft, voice. The force is it's really drawn me into you, and I appreciate that more than I appreciate anyone trying to bang people over the heads with their ideas and their thoughts and their opinions. So I truly am grateful to support what you have going on and what you're doing for all of us.
Thank you so
much. You're welcome. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you so much for tuning in today to She Says. I look forward to seeing you soon.
She Says is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content.